What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the MLB slate for Friday. Happy Friday to everybody watching. We got MLB and NBA tonight as usual, so let's go ahead. Start with the MLB video for today. As always, appreciate you guys to the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. We have a nice, shorter main slate, only 6 games tonight. Looking back at yesterday, had a good day on FanDuel, hit over 190 on FanDuel, had a bunch of twins. Garver was great with the home run at pretty low ownership. Cruz was a little bit disappointing, even though the team put up 10 runs. I mean, that's what happens in baseball sometimes. At least a couple other players in the stack did go off. Let's go ahead and look at tonight's picks. We'll look at the lineups that we have projected for and the totals. So out of the 6 games, we have one game doesn't have a total. The Blue Jays game does not. I would say that you would probably see somewhere around like 4+ total for the Blue Jays, maybe like a similar. I would expect the Angels to get a little bit higher of a run total here. I will just pass that game for now. Looking at the lineups here, though, like against Heaney, you want to target right-handed bats, right-handed power bats, and you got a bunch of them on Toronto. You got Simeon at the top of the order. Teoscar gives you a ton of home run upside. Gurriel's really good against lefties. Grichuk is having a pretty solid start to the season. They have a 7-8 right-handed bats against Heaney. He's definitely not a pitcher I'll target. Blue Jays look like a potential stacking option today. And then against TJ Zeuch, you want to look at some of the lefties primarily, and then always fill it out with Trout if you wanted to stack them up. It's basically, I would go Ohtani, Trout, Walsh as the main pieces, and you can throw in Rendon or Upton depending on how much money you have. But looking at the top stack options, going to be the Cleveland Indians are going to be at one of the top end stacking options today, going up against Julio Teheran with the wind blowing out in Cleveland. We know Teheran is really, really bad against lefties, and recently he's been bad against righties as well. We can look at his numbers here on Fangraphs. He had a fine start so far. I mean, it's one start that he did pitch. He was fine in that one, but definitely not a pitcher that I think that's going to sustain for the entire year. He still gave up that one home run was against a lefty, 538 slugging so far. He had a 7.98 xFIP in that first start against left-handed bats. He definitely got a little bit lucky in that one. Looking at last year, he gave up a 746 slugging to lefties, over 500 slugging to righties, so he was bad against both sides of the plate. The exit was approaching a 7 to left-handed bats, and the strikeouts were even less than the walk. He was walking more than he was striking out, only 11% K rate. So he's definitely a guy that you want to target a lot of lefties against, and you can even target righties because he's been bad against them as well, especially guys with power like Franmil Reyes. And even back in 2019, he was poor against lefties. So looking at this lineup here for the Indians, I really like Gamble if he's bats leadoff at $2,800. I like Jose Ramirez, switch hitter. Eddie Rosario's great. And then you got cheap hitters at the bottom of the order to fill out a stack with Josh Naylor, Jake Bauers, both guys with a little bit of pop, although they are inconsistent. I'm not really stacking any of the Phillies or Braves today. Both pitchers I do respect. I would say the Phillies should probably get a little bit higher of a total. I mean, their lineup has looked pretty solid, and they've been playing one of the best in baseball so far. So I would probably take the over on 3.6 runs. I think they could probably score more than the Braves today. But the Padres are a good stacking option. Arihara did not strike out very many. He only struck out one hitter in his first start, and this Padres lineup is still very powerful even without Tatis. Fam, Machado, Hosmer, Myers is a very good core 4-man stack right in the heart of the lineup. And then I really like the Reds today against Taylor Widener. He pitched well in his first start, but we don't have a ton of sample on him. Only 2 years, last year and this year, and last year was a shortened season. But he's not a top prospect or anything. He's about 27th in the organization. He throws a lot of fastballs. So definitely you need to kind of mix in your pitches if you're going to have success in the long term. In his first start, he did give up some damage to lefties, 286 average and a 429 slugging in 2020. In his limited time that he did pitch, he was bad against lefties as well with the 618 slugging given up. And the xFIP was over 5 for both sides of the plate. He does strike out over 20%, which is good to see, but he gives up a ton of power, as you see, 3.24 in his career home run per 9 to left-handed bats. And looking at this lineup here for the Reds, you see a lot of lefty power with, if Winker is in the lineup, maybe they go with Tyler Naquin just because he's been red hot. But whether it's Naquin or Winker, I would prefer a Naquin if he's batting leadoff. But you have Moustakas with a lot of power. You have Otto with some power, even though it's kind of been deteriorating. And then they still have a lot of righties that can get the job done. You got a cheap Nick Senzel. Jonathan India is cheap, $3,500. And then Castellanos gone off to unbelievably hot start. He's already hit 4 home runs in the first week, so he's another guy that you would round out your stack with. And then on the Diamondback side, I really don't want to stack anybody against Tyler Mahle. I think you can look to him as a streaming option just because this lineup isn't that scary, especially without Ketel Marte, who just got placed on the injured list. That lineup is definitely not going to be one that puts up a lot of runs most nights. And the last stacking option is going to be the Astros against the lefty. We have some good BVP for Alex Bregman. Against him, you can always go to Gurriel against the lefty, Carlos Correa, Altuve. So those would be the 4 I would look at. So the 2 main stacks I'm looking at are the red stack and or 3 Reds, Indians, and Padres I really like, and then I'd probably go with the Astros as my 4th stack. Looking at the DraftKings pricing for pitching, I would probably not get to a $9,600 Zach Plesac just because he is a lot more expensive than guys with similar upside. I would rather go down to Lance McCullers against Oakland. I really like Zach Wheeler at $8,800. Just gives you a ton of strikeout upside. He did dominate this Braves lineup on the second day of the Phillies season. In his first start, he put up 39 in 7 innings, only gave up 1 hit, no walks. He has ace stuff. They gave him a lot of money last offseason or 2 offseasons ago. It's his second year in Philly, and I do expect him to continue to pitch well. He's at a good price tag. Probably won't get that much ownership. And this Braves lineup, they do have a lot of power, but they also do have a lot of strikeouts with Acuna strikes out, and then you have Albies that doesn't strike out a ton. We can look at the strikeouts if we want to. We see Acuna almost 30% K rate, Albies over 20%, Ozuna 24%. In the bottom half with Pache, Riley, Swanson, Arnaud, they all strike out a ton, so I do like Zach Wheeler's chances to continue to pitch well against the Braves, at least in this start. And then the second pitcher, you can definitely pick between a few guys. This has Steven Matz projected to start for the Blue Jays. If that is the case, then you would look to some of the righties on the Angels, especially Trout, Upton, Rendon, all very good lefty hitters. So we'll see. Matz is a pitcher that does give up some power against right-handed bats. But I would go Wheeler, and then the second pitcher would be Musgrove against this Texas team. Musgrove pitched very well in his first start against the Diamondbacks. He had a great spring training as well with a ton of strikeouts. He racked up threw about 78 pitches, only needed that to get through 6 innings. Probably will get you into the 80s, maybe low 90s today. And this Texas lineup is actually been pretty good to start the year. But I would just assume that there are a lot of strikeouts in this lineup for Texas. So hopefully, even if he does give up a run or two, he can kind of balance it out with a lot of strikeouts, because he does have a lot of strikeout stuff. You have Nate Lau touching 29%, Guzman 29%, bottom half strikes out a ton, Culberson, Tavares, Gallo. So I do like definitely going with 2 pitchers that give you a ton of strikeout upside in Musgrove and Wheeler. And then basically looking at the stacks that I'm looking at today are the ones I want to get my hitters from. At catcher, you can go up to a JT if you want it to be different. If not, you can go down to a $2,800 Roberto Perez. Gives you some power at the bottom half of the lineup for a catcher position. And then depending on whatever cheap catcher we get, they're always in play. Maybe Wilson Ramos, just because he's a talented catcher at only $2,400, even though Plesac is not a pitcher I want to stack the Tigers against. But I can look to a one-off catcher in Ramos. First base, Eric Hosmer is a lot more expensive than the second highest guy. He's $5,500. I do like him today, though. If you wanted to stack up the Padres, he should be in the mix. He's gotten off to a good start so far this season. 2 home runs, hitting almost 400, and he could get low-owned if just because he is expensive. And Arihara, don't really worry about him striking out hitters. He only struck out 1 in 6 innings, and I don't think that will. He's probably going to improve on that, but I don't think he'll strike out many in this season at least. And then you can look to Guerrero against the lefty and Andrew Heaney, just because he's affordable. But I would look down here a little bit to like a Yuli Gurriel at $3,800. Very good against lefties. Sean Manaea has kind of been on the decline over the past few years, so he is a guy I would look to. And then you can look to a couple of Cleveland guys that are cheap here. With, I think Bowers is at the position. He's $3,500. He's been struggling, but always has some pop in his bat. Second base, Altuve is 49. He's expensive. Then you get Simeon, he's 47. Second base, typically a position that you can spend down on, just because there's always not very many studs at the top. So as long as Altuve doesn't have a good game, Simeon doesn't have a good game, you're probably fine going cheap here. So going down, I'm looking at like Jonathan India at $3,500. He's had a very good start to the season. This guy makes a lot of contact, gets on base, doesn't strike out a lot, and Even gives you, I think he has a little bit of speed. Hasn't taken a stolen base yet, but in the minors he showed some of that. 3,500 bucks. I do love the Reds today. I'll go ahead and put him in at my second base position. Other guys that we can look to here are like potentially, if you wanted to target Escobar against Mali, you can look to him, but I'd rather go down to India. And then there's really nobody in the 2K range that you can look to, unless you wanted to go with Nico Goodrum at $2,700. And then if you wanted to pay up, it's probably for Altuve. I don't think I want to go for a Fletcher, Hernandez, or Albies. If for the guys above 4K, maybe Cronenworth could be in the mix, but there's like 4 or 5 second base options that I'm really considering today, and I think India is probably one of my favorites just because I do love the Reds lineup. Third base, Machado is 5,800 bucks. I'd rather go Ramirez over Machado today. I'd probably go Bregman over Machado today. Bregman against lefties, always in play. He also has great numbers against Manaea. He has about 3 home runs against him. He's hitting over 300 in his career. I don't want to go to Biggio lefty-lefty. Don't want to go Chapman against McCullers. I definitely like Moustakas. Those are the two. Well, Moustakas, India, I love them to fill out your second and third base position. Moustakas is just really cheap. He hits righties really well. And he's hitting for a good average so far this season. Only has 1 strikeout in 17 at-bats. So he's putting the ball in play, which is all you can really ask for. He's had a couple of multiple hits in his last 4 or 5 3 2-hit games recently. The Reds lineup is super potent. They should put up a lot of runs all season. And getting Moustakas at only 4,100 with the Reds having second or third highest total on the board is definitely a spot that we can save some money here. But this position is very loaded, so definitely one that I would probably spend up on. If I want to go cheap, I'll probably go cheap at second base. Shortstop, fortunately take out Tatis. He's on the injured list. I'm looking at Carlos Correa against the lefty. He's been hot recently, and typically he's a guy that is a very streaky hitter. Home runs in his last couple games, especially against lefty, which he has done a lot better against in his career. He's in play. Looking at Suarez at 4,400 bucks. Potentially looking at Didi as a one-off against Charlie Morton, just because lefty-righty matchup does give you a lot of power. And then that's it. There's not a lot of options at shortstop. Going cheap here, unless one of these guys ends up batting at the top of the lineup, but there's just not that much appeal at the bottom half, especially when you got Suarez, Correa, Bichette, all guys with a lot of pop at the top. In the outfield, if it is Matz, then I like Trout a lot. He's really good against lefties. Matz gives up some bombs to right-handed bats, so Trout would be one of the best spend-ups. Castellanos been unbelievably good to start the year. 4 home runs and 23 at-bats. 4 of his 10 hits have left the yard, and he has 7 of his 10 have gone for extra base hits. He's been great. He gives you a lot of power. He's probably going to have, he could make a case for MVP this year if he continues to hit at this rate. He's been unbelievably good. I like Castellanos a little bit more than Will Myers. Will Myers also is in play, though. Definitely probably won't target Alvarez against a lefty-lefty. I really like righties against Manaea. Same thing with Brantley. Don't want to go to him lefty-lefty. Don't want to go to Ozuna. So that kind of takes care of much of the 4K range. You could go down to Teoscar. He's been struggling a little bit. He's 45, but anytime you fade him, he's probably a candidate to hit 2 out of the park. Same thing, I don't want to target Kyle Tucker against a lefty. And then you go down here in the 3K range where you do have quite a bit of appealing plays here. You have, even if you wanted to target Gallo against Musgrove just to be different, because Musgrove will probably be popular today, and he has been, the one side you can target against Musgrove is lefties, especially lefties with power, and that is definitely Joey Gallo, so we're getting him at a good price tag. But I would go to Grichuk, Gurriel as 2 guys you can look to against Andrew Heaney. And then you have, I think I passed over Eddie Rosario. He is 4,300 bucks against Tehran. I really like him. Good price tag for a guy that has been having a fine start to the year. He gives you power, gives you upside. His right in the heart of the lineup. The Indians have a very high total today. It's probably going to be because hopefully Rosario can hit one out of the park today. Really good spot, especially with the wind blowing out a little bit in Cleveland. And then the last guy for now will be projected leadoff hitter for the Indians, Ben Gamel. 2,800 bucks, just because you probably could get 5 at-bats here if the stack does go off. If not, you can look to a Nick Senzel, 2,900 bucks. You can look to a Tyler Naquin if he does bat leadoff at only $3,200. So we could definitely upgrade from Ben Gamel, but as of now, if he does bat leadoff, he should be in the mix. And that is pretty much it for the DK side. Let's touch on FanDuel. FanDuel, they have Wheeler as the most expensive pitcher, which I probably agree with. Then you have Musgrove, which I definitely agree with. Definitely think Plesac is a more appealing option on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. He's down to $8,600, but I'd probably go McCullers over Plesac. And then you have Tyler Mahle as a potential streaming option down at $8,400. And then you could look at Morin if you wanted to. The Phillies have a pretty low total. He's fine. At $7,500, you can get to all the bats you want. Just depends on if you need that much savings at pitcher. And I'm not looking at any of the other pitching options. So for me, it's probably going to be Musgrove or Wheeler at the top end. I'll go Musgrove right now to save $800. That could be a difference of getting a big bat in your lineup. Looking catcher / first base. Hoskins is 4K. Love Hoskins. He's been great to start the year for the Phillies, but I can't really play him. I can't recommend him. I like Hosmer more. At $3,700, I like probably saving some and going down to JT if I was going to target one of the Phillies bats here, but go down to like a Yuli Gurriel, go down to a Jared Walsh if it is a righty that's going for the Blue Jays. And then you can even go down to like a cheap catcher for the Reds, because even their catchers have been raking. Stevenson, Barnhart, both having great starts to the season. You know, whoever is behind the plate, you could look to them as a cheap, low-owned option. Second base, it is Altuve, the most expensive guy, $3,700. I like him more than Simeon, but I like Moustakas a bunch at $35. I will be stacking the Reds today, so hopefully Moustakas goes off because he's been great to start the year, and if it hits right in the heart of the lineup, should get some RBI opportunities. So he looks like a great option. You can look to a ton of Reds here. You got Senzel at second base, India, Moustakas, all second base eligible, so you got a lot to pick from. And then going down here, you can look to a Fletcher or a Profar as cheap guys at bat fine in the lineup and give you, at least Profar has a little bit of power. Third base, it is Ramirez at $4,100, who looks very appealing against the Julio Teheran and that Detroit team. I like Bregman as well, so position is loaded. I'll probably go Ramirez. He's cheap. DraftKings, he's very expensive, but FanDuel is cheap compared to the rest of the guys, so he'll definitely try to find his way into my lineup. And then you can go down to a Suarez at $3,200 if you wanted to save some money. You could even play Jonathan India here at $3K. And then in the outfield, it's Castellanos, $4,200, Trout, $4,500. I like both of them. I don't want to go to Acuna. I don't want to go to Alvarez, Bregman, and then Harper, Gallo. They're both fine plays. I like Harper a little bit more. Will Myers is affordable at $3,300, but it's going to be Eddie Rosario as another guy. Ramirez and Rosario, my two favorite Cleveland bats to get to today, and then probably get to another red here, depending on, it could be Tyler Naquin if he is batting leadoff for the Reds. He's $3,300, or you can go down to let's see how much money we have left, about $2,900. So we do have Nick Senzel is very cheap. In the outfield, we can play him at $2,800. He's also been doing great. So that's it for the baseball video. Looking at the Reds, Indians today primarily, and then you can go with some Padres bats as well. But thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Best of luck tonight, and we'll catch you all next time.